From across the comic book community multiverse, the Comic-Con podcast begins now with your hosts, Justin, aka Nemesis Prime.
If you give them the title of influencer, then that's giving them more power, right? That's how it is. Like, I'm a nobody. Listen, I'm a nobody.
Zack, aka the Manimal.
We talked about it for a full, I believe, 7 to 8 minutes on an hour-long normal podcast for a show. And you would have thought we set their house on fire with the backlash. So,
hey everyone, welcome back to the Comic-Con podcast, season 3, episode 5. You're listening to Nemesis Prime. How's it going, everybody? Little ASMR. What's going on, Manimal? How you doing?
I don't know. I'm kind of contemplating taking my headphones off because you really creeped me out with all the ASMR sexual overtones. And I just don't know if I want to be here anymore. This doesn't seem like a safe place. Doesn't seem like a safe place at all.
Well, this week's going to be a fun week. We have a great guest here on the show, someone who was pretty crappy at playing Fortnite, great part of the community.
Worst part of a Fortnite threesome that we've ever had.
He's someone who likes to aim for the bushes like me in Fortnite. You know him on the East Coast as ComicDunes. I know him as Jeff the Blunder. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
How are you guys? Thank you for having me. It's going to be an interesting night. I am definitely the weakest link on a Fortnite squad, but I will try my best, and I will absolutely hit you with a car and or a hammer.
That's true. So a couple of things. First off, there's so many opportunities for jokes here. And I think one of the things Jeff loves the most about Fortnite is if you can't see him because this is audio, but Jeff's not... He's vertically challenged a little bit, but in Fortnite, he's the same height as the rest of us individuals. But this dude has hit me with a car like 4 times in Fortnite. It's goddamn bullshit.
And I think it's clean. I've never actually been in one car accident, but aside from that,
I think if they ever actually recorded our conversations, and I know Zach, you really haven't played recently with us, I think we'd probably get kicked off the internet with some of the things that we say.
Oh yeah,
not anything like racial. It's just the things that we say to other people.
It's a hot take.
Yeah, the hot takes that happen. So there's times where we just can't stop laughing, and we get killed by teams. So, but yeah. Anyway, let's kind of get into it. Of course, we like to bring on guests here in the community, and I felt like Jeff. I've known Jeff for quite a long time. He's someone who he was us at one point. Just comic book collecting, and he's worked his way up, and he's been everything from vendors to we're going to get into some of his high-end exploits, and even he's even been featured in high-end magazines, which I think he has slabbed as well. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you start collecting, and why? How did you get into the comic book game?
Yeah, so comics, I was around them as a kid. I'm the youngest of my generation with older cousins and brothers. I inherited a lot of stuff, my stepfather too. So probably got my first comic book around like 10 years old, but like been in my hand since. And then when I was a kid, I worked like an intern with my cousins at this place in Manhattan called PIPS, Process Identification Processing Systems or something. And they made barcodes for like Marvel and DC. So they would send us stacks of everything, and it'd be really good stuff and not such good stuff, but we kept it all. I kept it all. They didn't want it. Nobody wanted it there. So with that and just what I was always buying as a kid, X-Men stuff from the 90s and not really older stuff until like my dad started giving me, he was like, hey, I got these doubles. Like, you should probably get into Daredevil. I got a chunk, and then when he moved, he was like, take everything. And timing with life, moving into this home with my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, I unfortunately sustained a third ACL tear, and good old Howie, Howie, my right-hand man, carried me out of the kitchen and into this comic life essentially. And we set up at a Clifton show where we've probably run across each other.
Yeah. So it's like funny real quick. Like you were a chef before you got into really like comic, like we all have those jobs where, like Zach has a career, I have a career, and, most people don't leave a good job with it, which they love, but you were a chef, right? I
was executive chef too at a catering hall.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing too was Howie, who everybody knows is my right-hand man. He's the owner of the company. He was an executive chef at the time, or sous chef, and we were just, him and I were jumping back and forth a bunch of different places, and I was actually just covering a shift. I never would have thought I got into this, or I would be in this place. selling comic books at any level, because that's not what the plan was.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool though. I mean, like, yeah, it's interesting how it happens. You start off doing whatever your career is, but your passion, your love is comics, and then honestly, being able to turn it into a career is the dream for a lot of people. In the community for sure. So,
I honestly, Zach, equated to like finding a collection. Right? It's like a needle in a haystack. I got lucky. I got really lucky. I was selling books. Like we just touched on before, when I'm coming across Justin at Clifton. That's just a rec center, It's been there forever. I used to attend and buy comic books there. So how that spawned into the Metropolis thing, it was just luck. Vincent, the owner over there, his brother, and another guy, Dave, run a show in Jersey. And, you just know people. And you always go by the Metropolis Comic Connect booth and just look and drool over all the cases that they have. And I went in for a secretary position, and it just turned out that the head buyer was leaving, and my resume came across. He's like, wait, this guy, just a couple quick calls, and lucky for me, my uncle, adopted uncle Joe Rock. Shout out to Joe Rock's Comics. Some references, and Jason, and you can go down the list of people that I've worked with, that kind of vouch credibility and just my hustle and my drive to be in this space. And really, I was also in a position having my first child, kind of shit or get off the pot. So
I think it's definitely interesting for you because like you said, you were a collector, and then you were doing the vendor thing at Clifton, and that's how we met many moons ago. And that's what you kind of see nowadays is, the people that I see at Clifton that are not shops were once people that would go in there and buy stuff, and then people retire from their jobs and do like that once a month or twice a month show if they can get in there and set up and have fun. And, you were doing that. And then with Metropolis, I mean, Metropolis is, if people don't know Metropolis, who comics are, I mean, I guess you're kind of living under a rock, right? Like they're kind of a big deal. I've bought tons of comics off of them. I've, even before you were working there, but so obviously you went in for a secretary, you ended up being the buyer. And then, with Metropolis, like how much and like what you were involved in, right? You were definitely in the ground up for all the video games and even the.
Oh yeah. I was the guy putting all the foundation down. They weren't even on that path before. I was an early comic book guy in video games, but there was a lot more comic book people, a lot bigger, doing a lot bigger things before I got in. I was just, again, lucky to have it tied in with Metropolis and Comic Connect, where, what they're doing with buying collections in the auction house, I was able to just start that branch completely, which is actually kind of cool. I don't know if anyone's ever started a branch or opened up a new vertical at that company. So that was fun. Definitely a lot of work. And you guys have seen the video game market. It's definitely taken a hit since. We can go down that path if you want, but that's going to get slippery real quick. There's a lot of moving pieces, high-end buyers that are no longer there. That seems to be,
we've talked about that kind of previously as well, in like the comic, market as well. Obviously, from the COVID era to the nostalgia era, and now we're seeing a lot of prices level off. So, I mean, it all kind of seems to be tracking on a lot of that stuff. Everything's somewhat going back to normal.
Yeah, definitely course correction. And that's something that we always talk about. And I feel like that's perfect for the people that want to, as long as you weren't a premium buyer trying to sell it at a high, if you're just buying it to collect. Jeff, when you were at Metropolis, obviously I've been there a few times. I was lucky enough to do, with your assistance when you were there, to do, some gallery stuff and go through when they had the J. Scott Campbell art gallery. They did, Sean Murphy, his stuff was there, Ken Lashley, some stuff. So, and then just even the walls. Yeah, Simone Bianchi, like unbelievable stuff that, that is over there. Obviously for us collectors who, haven't seen that side of the comic book world, we see like Action Comics 1 or AF-15s and Detective 27s, and, holding them is one thing, but like, what's the craziest thing that, you've seen at Metropolis that you're just like, it's almost like a one of one, right? Like something that is more grail than I would say that, the detectives and then Action 1.
So, I mean, in terms of I'm jaded. I'm extremely jaded.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And my opinion is very much so that, and I bet you there's going to be a ton of people who hear this and hate me after because I have a firm belief. My boy Anthony, Villains and Vigilantes, is going to get this one. He's going to love it. It's like there's nothing.
I love Ant, man.
That's my guy, man.
Yeah.
We were talking today. Like, there's not much there is rare stuff, right? But like nothing is really rare. My first day there, Vincent threw me a plethora of Action 1s. I've seen 20 plus AF-15s. I've seen multiple Batman 1s, detectives. I've seen, again, I did the turtle stuff. I posted on my IG the other day, my Turtles bit that we had, right? I sold
the first prints. Yeah, like that's wild.
Yeah.
And in the previous sale, it was like 90,000, right? FOMO does wonderful things, right? Since we'll talk about that later, but like at least Turtles, there's 30 something 9/8. And it's a real that's if we're talking rare, I'll throw the quotes up, right? 3,000 printed, a little bit over 1,000 on the census graded. Like maybe that book is worth it long term, right? But like,
yeah, what did it sell in 9/8? What was the high sale?
My high sale was 245. I think the high sale after that was like 260 something.
Wow,
which was wild because we applied for a Guinness book, and by the time we were going to get it, they were like, "Nope, there's a new record." Right? Because again, like you said, if you don't know Metropolis Comic Connect, you're living under a rock. Like Vincent and Company, they crush Action 1 sales like it's breakfast. So, but yeah, no. So we did the turtle stuff. I had like a $600,000 Super Mario sale, which was crazy. It was like a later round seal. I mean, if you're going down to the video game route, that's probably hard. They're probably harder to find than certain comics long term. And that's kind of what our claim to fame was when we started the department off. So, but yeah, no, craziest stuff. We found like a Manhunt 13 or 14. Don't quote me on that. I don't know my pre-code Golden Age stuff, and I'm learning a lot of that still, right? I mean, if you don't learn every day, like shame on you, because there's so much that we don't know in this space. But one of the guys who was handling it, he came in and he was like, there was this crazy horror. It had all foreign books in it. And it was the first time that it was ever located. So it like skipped a number. I think it went like 12 to 14 and it was like the 13, Manhunt 13 or something like that. Or it went like 11 to 13 and this was the 12, but it was right in those numbers. So that's
just something you don't see every day, right? It's just.
Oh, up until that point, you've never seen it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, and we used to get ghost calls. People call looking for, random.
As I pull out a Manhunt 13 from this.
Well, here's 3, right? Like, it's the thing. Like these big auction houses, they all their clients of the world, right? We're just all regular Joes. I can't afford any of that stuff. I collect GI Joes, right? And corny stuff. But I mean, the craziest thing, they got the House of Secrets cover on the wall.
Yeah.
Right next to a Frazetta. They have the first time Thor transforms in Journey 83. Wow. So it's really a combination of things. It's kind of what you want to get smacked in the head with today. You can go into either of their offices and one's got a Green Lantern cover and the other one's got a McFarlane. The other one's got the Frank Miller Wolverine splash. So it's just pick your poison, man. They're just not fair.
And you kind of, when Whatnot kind of started off, you started off with Metropolis on Whatnot. Like you kind of kicked off Metropolis's Whatnot channel, right?
Oh yeah. So at the time, which was interesting, I didn't know any of the guys from Whatnot, from A Hole in the Wall. Still really don't, which again, it's, it doesn't matter to me, right? We do business. Mm-hmm. I like selling on the app because it's quick, but we get no preferential treatment. They probably don't feature us as much because there's people that don't like us.
You're saying now? I thought you meant then.
Now, no, but at the time, at the time, we definitely. At the time, it was wild. We were cranking through stuff for them. We actually got locked into 0%, which was interesting because we didn't have a deal, but that was just it. Like if Metropolis sold on the app, we'll lock you into 0. And I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's roll. I'll build this out.
Yeah,
and we just cranked it because they have. Well, I don't want to get into what they have, right? Let's leave it at that.
Well, even Metropolis,
They're everything.
Yeah, I think Metropolis selling on Whatnot was like the perfect thing. Like it is literally the endless inventory of anything you wanted, right? You were doing sales. You invited me and Mighty Mel V on the one day we came in. We did an hour show each. We sold tons of comics. We got to pull like stuff. Not only did you have stuff set up, but it's just like, here's like 4 or 5 short boxes, pick something else that maybe you want to end up throwing in there. And I'm like, oh, this is hot. Let's run this. But then you still have like so much stuff that if people are asking, literally the warehouse is like right there, right? Like just have someone run and go grab, a book that people are looking for.
And it's just sitting there. It's not getting sold. So it's like, I mean, honestly, for Metropolis, it's a great deal. Like, get rid of some of this shit,
Yeah.
Push the product.
Someone will probably try to steal our idea here, my idea. But either way, we got them in at the beginning. And we were doing that. I was lucky enough, and again, being the businessman that I am, will toot my own horn. I piggybacked off that and said, I want ComicDunes to have 0%. So when we go down that path, we didn't utilize it right away because at the time I was still in Metropolis and I didn't operate my company because that was, violating my agreement. Right, I worked exclusively for Metropolis. If it's a conflict of interest, if I have a comic company and I could buy stuff, right? And
of course,
and it should all go through the auction house. And absolutely, same thing with video games and all the collectibles. So we didn't kick it back up until I went with Golden's, which was a fun ride. I was technically client partner manager, but tasked with building out the comic department with a good buddy of mine over there. And it just didn't work out. I like working for myself. High-end auction spaces are interesting, and I don't like beating around the bush, right? You're playing this game with people, and they're only going to be happy when their price is a new record every time because they feel they can do it themselves. So, here we are. But, we're in an interesting place as far as the market goes because, as you guys see, if you're analyzing prices, right, like everything's down. And like you were talking before, you're buying, if you were buying at the high price, COVID prices, you're probably getting burned right now. But if you've been collecting along the way and buying in throughout 10, 15 years, like you're going to make out like a bandit. And there's so many people doing it right now. So God bless you.
And what was the sale that you had and you were put in a certain magazine? I know we.
No. So what we did was, when I was the head of the video game department with Metropolis, with our contacts there, Forbes had reached out to one of my bosses, and they wanted to do a buy, sell, hold article on like video games as alternative assets. So they did it back-to-back years. We did it 1920, which was just super interesting because the video games really were birthed, like it felt out of like a nostalgic, like everyone's like need to have something else, but like this was it, right? Like video games have always been there. There've been people collecting video games way before this boom. Loose,
yeah,
CIB,
of course,
sealed, whatever, and people just they knew, right? They were collecting comics, and then once WATA came on the scene, there was like a very heavy split. Like people are like, "Oh, this is great. We can encapsulate it. Like maybe we can make some money. Here we go." And then people were just like, "Video games are meant to be played," and it kind of replicated the early startup of CGC, where like comics are meant to be read, so it's interesting, but that market definitely had a lot of hands in it. Again, I don't want to get too wild, but it was fun. In terms of just seeing cool stuff, because there's only a handful of like a lot of those games, right? Like I'm looking at a Mega Man slab right now, and if you want a Mega Man first print, there's legit a handful, maybe a handful.
And I think that's what's different than comics, right? Because like you said, like you could go on CGC and see the census and see how many, let's just call it, Action Comics 1, like how many 9.0s, 8.5s, 8.0, stuff like that.
Sure.
But when you look at a census like WATA, especially like, like a Mega Man or Legend of Zelda gold cartridge in the box, like sealed, it's like, pennies. It's like peanuts compared to like any of these comic books. And it's not like they're really coming to market anymore. By now, all these video games,
holding, right? Like you're going to take a bath. Like, so we had the opportunity to try to sell a Castlevania first print round seal. We've only seen like 5 of them. Wow. I say we, like I'm like still, fully entrenched in the video game community. I am not taking some time off. I'm doing comics again, right? I love my video game people, but like at the time, we had only seen 5, maybe 6. So it was like one of the highest graded ones. We wanted $1 million for it. It was like right before that Mario 64 sale. It should have never been 1.5 million. Like that was the worst thing that could have happened to video games. But like only 5 Castlevanias. There's like 3 to 5 round sealed Superman, right? Like a first print. And I get it. It's not Action Comics, but like if you want to talk rarity, like there's 2, right? Like Super Mario, how many printed? There's only a couple hundred on how many print runs, over 10. That doesn't make any sense. And he's an icon, right? He's more popular than Mickey Mouse. So to have one of those games, whether it's a round seal hang tab or like a matte or a gloss sticker, which like if you do, you've won the lottery, or like the last print oval, like you should be considered lucky because that's going to be a 5-figure game always. Just it's wild.
It's crazy. I've never the game. I don't know, man. I've never understood the gaming, the grading of the gaming. I guess I should. I mean, it's not that much different than comics, I guess, in a way. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna get you a graded Final Fantasy VII.
Is that your game?
I mean, I like it a lot. But I have. I don't know what my game would be. Probably Zelda. And I have both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, like the cartridge and everything, but no boxes or anything like that.
Yeah. Because who would have thought, though, right? Like if you're a kid and video games are expensive, and I know growing up we were definitely middle class at best, to complain and cry to get a game all year long for a birthday or Christmas, and then just not to open it. Like I would never.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I would get killed. I'd get killed. Forget it.
And it wasn't like, I mean, what were your other options, right? You buy it and you don't open it, and then you just rent from Blockbuster or like Premiere Video or whatever the hell you had. Like, no way, dude.
And that's another thing too with like Blockbuster. They had exclusive games. So like Clay Fighters, like there was a Clay Fighter game and some Ren and Stimpy stuff that like.
I remember, God, maybe it was for Sega, maybe it was for original Nintendo. I don't remember, but what's the name of the character? The mascot for Domino's Pizza. What's that dude's name?
Noid.
Noid, right? He had a video game, man. Yeah. I remember I bought that. I rented that one time and played the shit out of it. And years later, I've looked back at it and I'm like, why did I rent a video game about the Noid from Domino's Pizza?
We've played some terrible games.
The Spot game, the 7-Up mascot.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that one too. Yeah.
I never played that, but I think they had a few mascot games.
Yeah.
Some of those games just don't exist. And I mean, again, rare is rare, but if you have enough money, you can shake the right tree and get whatever you want. And my opinion is absolutely jaded just from my time, like seeing things, it's tough. It's tough.
So speaking of opinions, because you've kind of seen it all, you've been on, I guess both ends, right? You've been a collector, buyer, seller, and then you've even been on the other side of like the auction house side. What's your kind of take on the community and where we're at and what you've seen over, I guess, like the past 2 years of, let's call them influencers, let's call them centers of influence.
Deep breath, deep stretch, I guess, right? It's weird.
Yeah, get that cup of water.
Some of them have credibility, some of them don't. And I don't want to discredit anyone because like everyone's welcome in this space. Only some of them know what they're really talking about. And it's good to share knowledge and information, but it's not really good to like spoon feed specific agendas. And I feel like that's kind of what I've seen in my transition from like back from the high end stuff to, still playing in the high end game, right? You kind of like attached to it always, but now more so like the whatnot, middle of the road stuff, average man stuff that I could collect, like everybody else, collector. It's weird. There's so much more drama on this level than I've ever seen. And it's unfortunate, but it's like every day there's something else, right? And whoever, if you choose to be a part of it, that's up to you, but it's just strange because it's consistent. It's like this put this book, this put that book, this one says this one says that. I'm like, guys, it's a comic book. Like, it's really not that serious. And that's as far as that goes. The modern market, I see a lot of reflection from like the 90s. And that's heartbreaking because when I was at the high end, you know, what Metropolis specifically buying stuff, I'd go see collections and it would be a lot of the things that we're seeing now, these mass, I just say mass produced, but like they're mass produced in terms of how many variants are coming out, even though they're all limited. And again, it's like all quotes, but like you're getting 10 of the same book, 15 of the same, like nobody cares. Exclusive through this one app. Next week, they're not going to have any monetary value. And I'm not here to shit on anyone's project. Guys, buy what you want. Always buy what you want. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anyone else. But what I've seen from my perspective, in my opinion, is when you're going to go resell that, you're already going to lose. And I've broken too many people's hearts when I've walked into a collection and said, sorry, miss, sorry, sir. I understand that you're so-and-so passed away and you're looking for money for this, but they bought stuff that just doesn't have any value because they bought into that spec. They bought into that hype. They bought into the FOMO. Your Superman is dead, right? It's not going to put anyone to college. It's barely going to get you a date to the movies.
Yeah.
It's tough. And it's tough because the people that are feeding this know better. The people that are printing this stuff up, they know better, right? And like, again, if you're going to put out a book like at Comic-Con and you have 15 copies like of this one, like how many are you really going to produce? Like there's like a 3-2-1 rule. It's like 3,000, 2,000, 1,000. So like that's a lot of one book, and now everyone's doing it. It's just like, unless your book hits, is it really going to be a hit?
You know, you said something kind of interesting too that kind of mirrors some of my thoughts on like the whole industry recently. And you're like, you know, I don't want to shit on anyone's project. And I think that's very important to say. Like, you know, I've definitely shit on a few people's projects, but it wasn't meaning like I'm shitting on it because it's your project. I just don't like what you did here. And if you're creative, you have to be receptive to, you know, responses like that. But I think part of the problem is with like what Justin said, like the influencer era or whatever, you know, is the motives they're not genuine. There's an agenda, which is I think it's very obvious. It's self-serving. It's self-serving agendas where it's like, I'm pushing this book because by pushing this book, it has a monetary value back towards me, or I'm pushing this book because I'm sponsored by the producer of this book. So once again, I'm profiting off pushing this book that I know is garbage that I would never buy or whatever, you know? And then to also kind of like come back and say like, you know, to kind of touch on what you said about shitting on someone's project, it feels different than years ago. And like you said, like the 90s, like when projects were done out of love or creativity, and you can tell there are still writers and artists out there that are doing that. But then you have these people who have projects and it's a new exclusive every month or every 2 months or every 3 months. And it's like, I know you're not creatively. I know your heart's not in that. You don't give a shit about that. That's really not a project to you. That's money. You're trying to make money. And I think as like a person who's never been in the space that you are, you know, in like this buying, selling, you know, as a business, just as like the avid reader, collector, comic book community member, I resent that. Like I resent the fact that you're trying to make money off me, or you're trying to make money off of people in the community to line your own pockets while pushing snake oil salesman type tactics, you know? And that's what it really feels like what these past 2 years of the comic book community have been about, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the problem is though, is like, how do you have that conversation, right? Because you want to be welcoming to people in the community, right? Like I remember when I was new, a lot of the old heads at the older places, there was a split. Like, oh, we don't want anybody here. And there was a lot of guys super welcoming. JP, the guy who runs Clifton, gives me a hug. He knows my kids, right? But the guy next to me, I don't know what he's doing. He hated my guts because we were new. But we were doing it out of love, right? Mm-hmm. And then you break it down because you have the conversation about like, oh, this comic or what are you reading or this and that. But I just feel like we're so far gone because again, like you said, these people are just it's a pay me. It's snake salesman tactic, right? Or snake oil salesman tactic, and that's spread so far, right? And it's rooted, I think, throughout multiple apps, whatever you want to sell on, right? Because now everybody's also a salesman. We have a lot of.
Sorry, no, I was going to say you can tell there's a lack of love for like from these influencers, right? Like they may have started off being us, right? And then graduated to that space as like an influencer self, but you can tell there's a lack of love for comics. Like the enjoyment's not there anymore. They're not reading because they enjoy the stories. They're not collecting anymore. It's all based on profit. And I mean, I guess in a way, if I'm being, honest, I understand it's your business, and it's also kind of what they tell you, so everyone wants to do what they love, but sometimes doing what you love can change what you love. You know what I mean? You can stop to love it.
I mean, I know they can't see it, but you guys can. But look behind me. I collect GI Joes.
Yeah.
But again, my opinion is skewed and jaded because I've dealt with people that aren't polite. Right? It's like in this space, on every level, you have not nice people. Right? That's in everywhere you go. But like when it comes to something that they want, it becomes a whole nother level of nastiness. Mm-hmm. Right? And then it becomes an even more of a cutthroat thing. Right? So it's interesting that what I've seen some at like the highest level has now trickled down to the bottom, but like it's all really not necessary. Again, it's comic books, right? It should just be this simple. And exactly what you said, Zach, before about the 90s, those creators that are still like the people that we love now, right? The Jim Lees and the McFarlanes, and you can go down the list, right? That birth, that whole era where we got the influx of these variants and the shiny covers and all the things that crashed the market. If that came out of love, and this is coming out of wherever, right? The underbelly, where are we going? Isn't that a bad sign? Like that should be red flags for everyone, right? Like, again, don't listen to me, just open your eyes and take it for what it is. I don't want to have these conversations another 5 years if I'm ever working for an auction house or I'm buying a collection myself and saying, you know what, Justin, you know what, Zach, all of those Ninja Funks worth it. And
that's literally going to be the example I used as well.
Like, I love the guys who put that, like the dudes who originally started that. I know them for a long time, right? Good dudes. I've had really good conversations with them. But the agendas are just that, right? Like, I get it. At one point, I had one selling video games on the high-end level. I know how this works, right? If we're going to call a spade, you got to own up to it. And it's just, the way you push things out on certain levels, and not just that, right? But that's just a small tidbit, right? It's just detrimental to comic books, at least modern comic books, long-term, in my opinion.
In your opinion, would you say that the cameo of the Bueller Bang Bus on Ninja Funk 1 will hold value in the future? Is this a book that we should be getting our hands on?
I want to give a shout out to Matt DeMasi and Shattered Comics because he had that bus way before. I like Bueller. I like what he does. I just don't think any of these books with anyone on it, right? That's it. That's a cool idea. If I had the opportunity to jump in a bus and cruise around the country, I would. I just, again, if you put my face on a variant, guess what? It's not going to hold any value, right? It's not him. It's not this one. It's not that one. It's not right. We're interchangeable. Like,
and you'll tell the artist to make sure they make you taller than you actually are.
Right.
Yeah, at least 5'7". I'm 5'6". Heels on. So, guys, I want to be tall. I want to be a baller.
Well, Jeff, we appreciate learning all about you tonight. Again, make sure you follow Jeff on ComicDunes over on Instagram, ComicDunes on whatnot as well. You can also follow Jeff. He's also on Facebook as well. But let's kind of get into some articles tonight. For all the DC haters, you're going to hate the rest of this episode because you know where we're going. I'm pretty sure everyone's kind of tired of hearing about it. But we wouldn't be a podcast without talking about all the great news that came out this week for DC Studios. So let's get a deep dive right into it. So over at The Hollywood Reporter, DC slate unveiled new Batman, Supergirl movies, Green Lantern TV show, and more from James Gunn and Peter Safran. So basically, we all know who James Gunn is. He's basically taking over the TV, movie, video games over at DC Studios. He wants to make one combined universe over the next 8 to 10 years. Calling this the Chapter 1, The Gods and Monsters. Now, obviously, this is not all the movies and TV shows and stuff that's going to be coming out, but we finally have some information to go off of. So, we're going to just go down the list and kind of give us some quick thoughts about what everything is. So, the first thing that James talked about was a animation show, was Creature Commandos, a 7-episode animated series written by Gunn. Basically, if you don't know, there's classic monsters in there that are fighting the Nazis. That is a modern take on the concept. He's basically saying that a lot of the voice actors are people that you may see in live action. So some of these heroes may end up in the live action movies or shows, or you may see, by the time it does come out, you may even see some of the cartoon characters playing the live action versions of these characters. So Zach, what do you think about this for this first iteration?
It's cool. I mean, I like the idea that they're going to do an animation of, and I think we've talked about this in varying topics, like animation for not so well-known characters is a great move, right? You get an introduction, you get the kids involved, possibly. It's not a heavy lift, so to speak. I say that as not being someone who has to do animation. I'm sure it's a very, very heavy lift, but I mean, like maybe monetarily, you could end an animation show and it's not going to cut you like deeply in your pocketbooks, most likely, as you would a movie or a live action. So I think it's a great idea. And like a lot of these characters are not unknown characters. I mean, from this picture, you can see, like I think it's Rick Flag Sr. Anyone who's familiar with DC, Dr. Phosphorus, obviously Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein.
From Shade, yeah. He's awesome.
Yeah. Mr. Robot, right? And then it looks like there's even Ratman, right? Or
Rat. From the Suicide Squad movie.
Like an earlier iteration, right?
A Weasel, yeah.
Weasel,
Jeff
yeah.
it.
Sorry, Weasel. So that's cool, like very interesting characters to kind of, and the idea, it's smart. And I will say this, let me preface this by saying James Gunn kind of, in some of the conversations in the articles, I don't want to say he shit on Marvel, but he kind of was like, oh, we're not doing what Marvel did. Well, in a way you are, because it was a good look to do the voice cast. You want those voice casts to carry over. And I think that's very important. And Marvel did that as well. But I think it's good. I think it's Creature Commandos looks awesome. Looks like Invincible animation, right?
Yeah, definitely has a very...
Rick Flag Sr. looks like Omni-Man to me.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jeff, this is kind of an older thing. Creature Commandos, not really popular. Definitely probably like F list of characters. What do you think of this upcoming project for?
This is interesting to me, and I'm not big on the DC guy, on DC in general, right? Like the extended stuff, but I never really heard too many people asking for like Weird World War Tales 93, right? Like that's not a book that people came ever looking for. Probably until the last couple days, but I'm interested to see what they can do. I feel like some of these properties are kind of like sub-level, like what he did with the Guardians, right? So interesting. But I'm really curious about the Swamp Thing, right? Like out of everything, I really want to see the Swamp Thing.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to get there towards the end. So, and I know James Gunn even said in his 5-minute like YouTube whatever introduction of all these things, he actually wrote all these episodes. So again, I think it's going to be well done because James is writing it, he's at the helm. So next up we have Waller in a spinoff to James Gunn on HBO Max Peacemaker show. We got Viola Davis returning as Ms. Government Task Force X herself, Amanda Waller, being written by Crystal Henny, who did Watchmen, and a couple other creators, Jeremy Carver, who is the creator of the Doom Patrol TV series. Now, I think this is kind of interesting because of the fact that now we kind of see that Peacemaker, the Suicide Squad, Amanda Waller is still part of this new DC Studios world. So,
right.
And Viola Davis is an amazing actress, right? She did a great job for the few times that she's already played Amanda Waller. She just had that movie that came out last year.
The Woman King?
Yeah, The Woman King. So, I definitely think this is going to hold a lot of weight. I think she's going to be a great addition because it's already kicking off a strong female character for the DC Studios world. Zach, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I'm excited for it. I like Viola Davis as Waller. The only question mark is, where's the connection? Because obviously she is going to be one of the few people that we see that has a previous showing in the Snyderverse, so to speak, and now moving into the Gunnverse, if you will. So how does it all shake out?
Ooh, I like that. The Gunnverse. The first time I heard that.
That's good. I like that.
Oh, dude, nailed it right here.
Oh, all right. Hashtag Gunnverse. Going to use that on the thumbnail. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Your Legends once, right?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, legends, bro. We're just becoming legends.
There it is. So next up, obviously, the first big movie of the Gunnverse, Superman Legacy, the movie featuring the Man of Steel, was written and directing by our man James Gunn. So obviously, he says it's not going to be a origin story. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage and his human upbringings. He's the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He's the kindness in the world that thinks that kindness is old-fashioned. Coming out in July of 2025. Obviously, no no actor, no actresses, and anything has obviously been talked about. I mean, we're 2 years away, but that's 2 years away is like going to come around the corner. So I know James Gunn posted on his Twitter. Does he want Superman? He did a poll, which is James Gunn or Superman either with or without tights. So I thought that was pretty funny. And a lot of people kind of were gearing towards the with tights thing. So
trunks, the underwear.
Oh, the trunks. Yes. You're right. So I think it's really, I think this is the perfect way, right? It's not an origin story. He's already established. It's Superman. We know who he is. We don't need crazy backstories.
If you don't know Superman's origin at this point, don't watch comic book movies.
Yeah. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, another Superman actor, another Superman movie. Let me just see it, right? I liked Henry Cavill as Superman. I just thought I wasn't crazy about the Snyderverse, but we'll see. I was doing some homework earlier and I saw something about, they were talking like, I don't know where this came from, but Chris Pratt. And if he ever becomes Superman, I just quit. I will quit everything.
I think they're going young. They've hinted at that it's going to be a younger Superman than what we're maybe normal or what we're used to. Obviously, I guess what a lot of people are used to is Henry Cavill. This is a tricky one. I mean, and I don't want to spoiler alert for the people who maybe don't know about these titles, but in this announcement, James Gunn hits the big three in a little ways, and we'll kind of talk about as we go on. But obviously, Superman is going to be one of the most difficult ones to hit because you're coming off Henry Cavill being such a fan favorite. There was so much like backlash and anger about him not returning. This is a tricky one, man. And it's kind of like it's the first foray into this universe. You got to come out swinging here.
But do you really? But see, the thing is like, do you? Because even like with Iron Man and then when they started Marvel, right? Like, I feel like nobody really knew, like nobody really cared too much. And I feel like it didn't really start to hit until maybe like Captain America.
But that was different because
there was nothing before it.
Like Iron Man never had a Martha moment that completely like derailed it.
Yeah.
I feel like, right? There were just so many things that Iron Man did by itself to build the foundation. Just even as a standalone movie, you can watch that and it's good.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have. I mean, we live in an era of trolls too, man. So like, there's going to be people who are waiting for this movie to fail, and no matter how happy they are about it, will tell you this movie sucks. So this is a tough one, man. And I think it's brave of them and the right decision to say, look, we're going to start with Superman. Fuck it, we're going to shove it down your throat, see how you like it. Mm-hmm. So rather than waiting down the line. So
yeah, I like it a lot. I like the idea of throwing it right, like you said, first up for the movies. So next up, we have a TV series. We have Lanterns. So of course, if you did not know, Greg Berlanti was in the works for the TV series over at HBO Max. That's obviously been scrapped now. So this is now the new thing. So over at Hollywood Reporter, it's in a place where it'll be new take space cops with power rings. Our vision for this is very much in the vein of True Detective, says Safran. It's terrestrial based. It will feature prominently Lanterns like Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, and is one of the most important shows that we have in development. This plays a very big role in leading into the main story we are telling from across film and TV. So we are already into, something that's going to be a connected universe. So, once, and we've already Zach and I, we've already kind of touched upon this. This is the final season of the CW Flash. Mm-hmm. Doom Patrol's done. Titans is done over at HBO Max. They have confirmed that the Superman and Lois will go at least another 1 or 2 seasons as of right now. But now that's really what it is. You're going to have these TV shows and movies that are starting off immediately in a connected universe.
Yeah. This is probably the one I'm most excited for. Just because I've been saying it for years on the podcast as well, that what the Snyderverse lacked for the longest time was Green Lantern. And I'm glad that maybe it didn't work out and they didn't actually tag into Green Lantern yet. So it's fresh. The last Green Lantern we had was Ryan Reynolds. So it's been a very, very long time since we've gotten any good Green Lantern stuff. So it should be a fresh thing. I love the idea. I'm a massive True Detective fan. I think one of the biggest tropes or the themes of Green Lantern that would be really fun to explore is the police procedural type storyline. This is kind of a fun thing. It's superhero police procedural. It's just gonna be like anything like, and I'm not saying these are good shows. I know probably some people out there really like them, but like NCIS and like, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, all that shit is very popular, right? The procedural cop shows. And this is like, this could be something like that. Could be really fun. I think the space aspect of DC was probably the one thing that was not explored enough in the Snyderverse, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I think this is going to be great. And I love that you're doubling it up with Hal and Jon Stewart, because
Yeah.
I think it's important to have Jon Stewart, but I think you piss off people by cutting out Hal Jordan. So just bring them both in, dude. You know what I mean? Just do it. It's a cop unit. You can have two of them. So,
and I'm sure you're going to see more than just them as well. So they're
Right.
they're definitely going to be in there. Next up, let's kind of go with the Authority. Something that I feel like this is probably the obviously other than other than the Creature Commandos. You have this is definitely way out of left field. So the Authority, a movie based on a team of superheroes with rare extreme methods of protecting the planet that first originated in the late 1990s under an influence known as the Wildstorm print run. Obviously, DC Publishing's Jim Lee is one of the things that the DCU is just not. It's all about the storylines and also the heroes and villains, said Gunn. Not every film and TV is going to be a bit about good guys versus bad guys. Giant things from the sky come and good guys win. There are white hats, black hats, and gray hats. So this is kind of they're kind of saying that this kind of like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. The Authority, I mean, I don't really know too much. I know there's a lot of different characters from different parts of the Wildstorm universe that are going to make up this team. I feel like could be almost like a Jupiter's Legacy, like that we've seen on Netflix. If anybody's checked out that show, Jeff, what are your thoughts on the Authority? I know you're basically as old as us. You kind of grew up in that '90s era.
But I was completely I stayed away from this. I was mostly like Marvel, and then some DC. The Authority is completely foreign to me. I know zero about it. It was explained to me DC's version of The Boys. I'd like to see it. Again, I'm going to do some homework on it now. And will I say I'll read it? Probably not, but maybe, dig down a couple videos just to see what it's about. Mm-hmm. But I'm excited. It seems like he's taking pieces of not just Marvel, but like any other superhero property and making it his one thing, right? If this is The Boys and, we have some like the horror element, like Your Werewolf by Night, like we just got. And mm-hmm. I feel like, Suicide Squad with like a Guardians kind of ragtag B-level. He's pulling the best parts. So this is interesting because I don't know anything about it. So I just want to see what he does with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm familiar with the Authority and obviously it's more like the more current iteration, like when New 52 did Stormwatch. It's kind of where I interacted more with like the Authority, and obviously Midnighter being their most prominent type character. But I've always I know Jeff just kind of said that they're kind of like the Boys, and I never really thought about that analogy. For me, it was always, they are the Squadron Supreme of the DC universe. They're very much like Hyperion, Night Owl, those guys,
mm-hmm.
Spectrum. They're all very very similar to like the Squadron Supreme. I think it's interesting. I think it's cool. But to be honest, I don't know. Like these teams like Squadron Supreme and the Authority, they're all kind of knockoff Justice League teams. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know how successful they'll be. Midnighter is very much like a Batman-esque type character in terms of like attitude, not by power set or like,
oh yeah, definitely,
but demeanor and like, I don't know, but it's interesting. And, I think it's fun that he is taking risks and he's not going with, cause look, I mean, what's he going to do? Hey, here's our first slate. It's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Aquaman. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. No, he's got to take some risks and throw some teams in there that, like we've said before, you have to let properties cool so memories can go away, and then you can try something new with it. So yeah, I'm here for it, man. We'll see how it goes.
Oh, totally. I agree with that as well. Next up is going to be another show. We got Paradise Lost. The duo describes this HBO Max series as Game of Thrones style, set in an all-female island, of course, Wonder Woman's birthplace, Themyscira. So filled with intrigue, political, and scheming between power players. I mean, that's basically same thing like Game of Thrones. I mean, obviously, it's going to be an all-female cast, so they're definitely going to have to pull some powerful actresses out there, to do this show, and maybe a lot of newcomers. But I think, having a Game of Thrones type of show, all females, on Themyscira, which is still part of the DC universe, is something that can be done very well. Guys?
Same thing. I mean, I like that they're, it's one of the big three, right? Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. And so you're getting some Wonder Woman in here. In this article, it also said it takes place before the events of the Wonder Woman films. Once again, it's a big question mark for me. So are the Wonder Woman films with Gal Gadot, are those canon? Are we moving on? How long can you operate in Themyscira without a Diana Prince? You know what I mean? Like fans aren't going to be able to, you can't just keep doing Game of Thrones in Themyscira and then you never have a Wonder Woman. Like you got to be working.
Or it sets her up at some point.
Right. So, there's a lot of question marks there as to, Gal Gadot. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. There's a lot of question marks as to canon and Gal Gadot.
Jeff?
He hit it right on the head. I mean, I didn't do much research on that in terms of like who's going to be in it. But if there's no Wonder Woman, I'm not interested personally. And I'd like to see if they bring her back. I thought she was a good fit for Wonder Woman. But if this is a prequel, maybe. I don't. The Game of Thrones thing doesn't do it for me. She doesn't do it for me.
All right. So yeah, again, it's not for everyone. It's some people are going to like the idea, some people are not. Some people are into the fantasy, some are not. So, but that's good. I mean, obviously, that's why we have different people here on the podcast. We all can't be the same. So,
yeah,
I like
it. You're just not right though.
Yeah,
you're just wrong. I mean,
I'm okay with that.
You're wrong as a guest on the podcast.
All right. All right, here we go. The best. I'm sorry, I'm just so excited for this. The Brave. This is the best. The Brave and the Bold. This is the introduction of the DCU Batman, said Gunn. Bruce Wayne is also introduced to his son, Robin Damian Wayne, who is a little son of a bitch, in quotes. This movie obviously takes place and inspired by Grant Morrison's run, where Batman has had a son he never knew that existed, who is a murderous tween raised by assassins. It's a very strange father and son story. And of course, it's not going to be Robert Pattinson because that's already got the Batman sequel. But hell, I have been talking on this podcast for 2 years. Damian Wayne, my favorite Robin, finally getting his time to shine. I recently rewatched for the second time the Batman Battle of the Super Sons, and I watched the first time by myself, and the second time I saw it with my brother, and it's just so great. Like he's the same way. Like Damian is Damian, and I really hope they stick with that. I could definitely see this being a more rated R movie, because James Gunn did say that some of the movies will be PG-13, some stuff will be rated R. I definitely could see a Batman movie. He's a little bastard. Like I want to see him. I want to see him as Damian Wayne as in the comics.
I saw something somewhere. It might have been Heroic Hollywood on Instagram or something. And I don't know if this was just a picture, a fan casting, or what the hell it was, but I'm all about it. Was the actor who plays Five from Umbrella Academy as Damian Wayne.
Ooh, yes.
I was like, do make that happen. Like that should happen. Like that would be perfect. Because even when I watch Umbrella Academy, I'm like, how's this kid ever going to do another role? Because he's so like adult as Five, because he's an older guy in a little guy's body, right? And but dude, bring him over as Damian. Perfect. Same attitude, same vibe, killer, murderer. I'm about it. Who's that actor? What's his name? It's got it right here. Aidan Gallagher. I'm about that. Yeah. Fan casting number 5 as Damian Wayne.
I like that. Jeff, thoughts?
I like the different take. Don't know so much about Damian, but I like the different take on Batman, right? Like with all the different Batman movies, you've always seen him at a different career, like a level stage in his career. So now you get like a dad. That's kind of cool.
And Bat Family. We've never really had Bat Family.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like we've always what was our first exposure to any Robin was like Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Like really? I mean, like aside from the campy stuff, but on the big screen, it's been right. Like that Batman movie can't count, but I guess Burt Ward and then Chris O'Donnell. But
right.
So to go in a different direction, more violent. I like when Batman's violent on screen. That's just.
Yeah, and I mean, I've read Batman and Son several times. I think it's probably the pinnacle of Grant Morrison's run, because after that, it's kind of like it's a big mishmash. Some of the things that happen because of what happens in Final Crisis when Batman dies. But I think the Grant Morrison run with this is perfect. It's a perfect way to start off because again, he's established. It's not going to be an origin of Batman. Batman's there. They've already kind of talked about that other Bat Family characters will show up. So if you've read Batman and Son, Tim Drake's in there, Nightwing's in there, but that's not to say that they may swap out one of these characters and put a Batgirl in there, or we'll see more of Nightwing instead of it'll be Nightwing fighting
Yeah.
Damian instead of like him fighting Tim. So I
And
think it's perfect.
reading between the lines too, you're getting Damian Wayne. That means you're getting Al Ghul's. So that's fun too. I mean, you're getting
Yeah.
a Talia. We've never really had a Talia. Of course, we had it in like Dark Knight Rises, sort of. But maybe like the traditional Talia Al Ghul. Hell yeah, man. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. So here's a book that I've probably sold last year, a little too early, but Booster Gold, HBO Max series from, of course, everyone's futuristic loser himself, superhero, imposter syndrome as a superhero. That's what James Gunn is saying. So, of course, if you don't know, he's basically a loser in the future who comes back to the present day to kind of help he can be a superhero, so people will like him. Booster Gold's always kind of had a fun little back and forth. He's always had that buddy cop with Blue Beetle. I remember him on like the Brave and the Bold cartoon series, Justice League Unlimited. Booster Gold's definitely that quirky guy, and I think this is like their comedy. They're definitely introduction into like almost like a comedic superhero for this DC Studios. Jeff, I know. What are you thinking on the Booster Gold?
Well, so the limited stuff that I know, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, and I was just curious when I saw this announcement, like, are those two movies, are those characters going to team up at some point? Will we get some type of...
it's usually the Ted Cord Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
He's like,
it's not the newer thing that they casted?
No, not the Jaime Reyes character. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, again, let's see. I don't know much except for kind of what you were saying. He's the like a futuristic wannabe superhero. It's very comedy based. But they're taking random properties, right? You can't just regurgitate the big three, like Zach said, without time to properly digest what we've just gotten. So let's see what happens. I'm not familiar, but I'm sure Booster Gold purist can school me, and hopefully it gets it out of the park so they're happy. Right? I'm gonna go see it anyway, just because I see all the superhero movies. But let's see.
Yeah. All right, next up, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So taking its cues from the recent Tom King written miniseries, it was an 8-issue miniseries that just came out last year, which I completely missed for some reason. Basically, it's Superman's cousin, we all know. We will see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by, of course, the Kents, and we have Supergirl, who is raised as an infant on a rock, a chip off the old kryptonite, who's watched everything around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, and then comes to Earth. She is much more hardcore and not the Supergirl we're used to. Zach, thoughts?
I don't know. Nothing bad. I don't know. I think in terms of DC, Superman titles and properties are like in terms of the reading are typically my least favorite properties in the DC universe. So it's hard to get really excited about a Supergirl, which is just, another version of Superman. Obviously she does have some different aspects to her character. This one I'm kind of a little indifferent on. I mean, I'm about it. I'll see it, but I don't know. No, real kind of indifferent.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be different than Supergirl, the TV series, which wasn't bad. It definitely had
it was bad.
It had its pros, it had its cons. Obviously, I think more its cons than pros, but still, I think they did a good job until it started to get, they had to, check off some boxes and
push
stuff
every
like that.
agenda.
Yeah. But for the most part, I think I definitely got to check this series out. I got to check out Tom King's 8-issue miniseries to kind of see what's going on. So, not much to say because I didn't read it, but I'll definitely have to go back and pick up all these issues. So, and then rounding out the final thing for chapter 1, talking about Swamp. Unfortunately, only one series over on what was the DC Universe, HBO Max. I think it was even on like TNT. They launched it, or CW. They played the first season. Definitely rated R. I think if this stays as the horror film that it's saying that it is, I think this is going to be a perfect introduction into the world of horror for DC Studios. Jeff, thoughts?
I love Swamp Thing. Old school. It just one of my guys. before Bernie died, I had a quick conversation with him about like some of the characters. Like it's just super cool. The art, the horror. My dad was a big Swamp Thing guy. That's probably the one book. If I'm gonna just do anything and get away from like the actual like what's coming out, buy that book. That's the only book I believe in.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough book to find, especially in like high grade. And it's funny. I almost thought about trying to sell my House of Secrets and Swamp Thing 1, and now I'm just like, I think it's time to hold on to him for a little bit longer.
I mean, I know we've been talking about the properties, but on a quick like comic like that, the Showcase, the Green Lantern 87, those are the 3 books that I would, after this announcement, that I would go after. I think everything else might be a flash in the pan, but yeah, no, I'm excited about that. I want to see. I want to see what these movies do to the books, and that's like the one, or the show as well. That's the one show that I'm kind of looking to see what the outcome is.
What about you, Zach?
Yeah, I'm about it. I just really hope they lean heavy into the horror film aspect of it, right? You know, like I would be completely okay. I understand it's all supposed to be like connected, but you like things can be operating in the universe, and you don't have to have the spoiler or the like the in credit scenes and the stingers and everything. Like it can just be that it's happening by itself, and we all know it's in there. I think that's kind of, and I'm worried about, because I feel like that's what everyone's got used to with Marvel. It's like, yeah, it's all connected. So if I watch a movie and I don't see a character from over there, how do I not know it's connected? Well, motherfucker, you've been told it's connected. Just let it operate the way it operates. And I would like to see Swamp Thing be this sort of like solo title that kind of does its own thing and operates in the horror realm of the shows and supernatural aspect. And because that's
and then that just sets up Justice League Dark.
Right.
You know, obviously we were originally possibly getting, you know, as a Zatanna movie or show, and that kind of got canned. But, you know, Justice League Dark was on the docket for a while. And I mean,
yeah,
this literally opens up chapter 2. And I mean, and now, you know, we're talking, you know, God knows 2030, like 2033, maybe.
Right.
Who knows where we'll be and what comics I'll have then. But yeah, you got to start somewhere. So I'm happy about this and then, like they said, like James said, this is not the full chapter 1, this gods and monsters stuff. There's definitely going to be other stuff that's introduced, but kind of what I've read is that they want to do 2 shows and 2 movies every year, which is, I think, a perfect thing. You know, don't oversaturate the market with, you know, having a show, a movie, because, you know, we've seen what Marvel Phase 4 was, right?
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Way too much. So it's perfect. It's, if you got a movie and then a show and then a movie and a show to end to finish the year, that's the exact way to do it. I don't think you need every blockbuster to come out and every couple months you're switching on to HBO Max just to watch a show to catch up. So perfect stuff. And then, of course, the only other stuff, the Batman sequel is coming out in 2025. Obviously, Todd Phillips' Joker and Teen Titans Go is all going to be rebranded under the DC Elseworld. So I'm interested to kind of see if they do anything other than that. I would say I think they're doing the Black Superman, African-American Superman, whatever, Calvin Harris. Like that's going to be part of the DC Elseworld story. So
it'll be interesting to see how much, because obviously there was a lot of talk about Matt Reeves' Batman universe kind of being fleshed out. We got the Penguin show, and there was hints that we might see more. It'll be interesting to see how much, now that James Gunn's kind of doing his thing, is that going to impede and kind of slow down maybe what Matt Reeves, are they going to want to be spending the same kind of monies, you know?
Yeah.
What I mean?
And that's two. Then it's 2 Batmans. So
right.
So that's, of course, for all the DC stuff. I'm sure everyone's on YouTube and Instagram has been talking about it. And again, it wouldn't be this podcast if we weren't talking about it. So since we are recording this actually on Wednesday, all the comic books that came out today, I didn't get a chance to read, but I know Zach was able to actually check out something for our, what are we currently pre-ordering? Because we're actually in the middle of our changing over the month. So if you're pre-ordering anything for this month, will be coming out in April. And I know Zach's got one title that's he's pre-ordering.
Yeah, so actually it's something a little different. It's not actually a comic book. And I think, Justin, you maybe pre-ordered this as well. I'm not sure. But I was going to tell everyone, you know, I pre-ordered the Jedi Fallen Order book, Battle Scars by Sam Maggs. Comes out like, what is this, March 7th. So it's supposed to take place, I think it's in between the 2 titles, Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, right? So should be fun. I mean, obviously that's a great story, and I'm excited to read it, see where all the characters have been and what's going on before the new game comes out. And that got pushed back too as well. So that's kind of a plus. It gives you a little bit more time to to burn through this book before the game comes out. So a little pre-order book for you there.
Yeah. So, but we'll be back next week with all of our, what are we currently pre-ordering and what are we currently reading, of course, just because we're recording this a day or so earlier. But Jeff, our man, Comic Dunes, before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, Comic Dunes, Instagram, Facebook, whatnot, eBay, comicdunes.shop. You want to play some Fortnite and you want me to tag along and weigh your team down. You want to get hit by a car, add me Comic Dunes. Guys, thank you for having me, man. It's been a blast. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
The good thing about Jeff is it's not just a comic book community, a guy from the comic book community. It's an actual friend, so it's fun to have Jeff on here. I mean, like Justin said, when we're playing Fortnite, it's just bullshitting the whole time. So
yeah. And if you see my most recent post on my Instagram, of course, I did the reel. You'll never find a better Whatnot show than on a Saturday night with myself and Jeff and Howie and his brother while they're giving away books as I'm playing Super Punch Out and getting wrecked. Or then eventually we switch to Blades of Steel or hockey and all these other things on the Nintendo Switch. So please.
We gotta work on your technique, my friend. That's it. You were costing us a lot of money. Lucky we got a sponsor, right? Us.
But yeah, Jeff, of course, you're always welcome back. Again, he's definitely someone who, is not like Zach said, he's definitely, a good friend here on the East Coast. He's well known on the, in the New York, New Jersey market as well. So New York is his hometown. And, I've known Jeff for so long. It's crazy when you go from going to just shows here in the New Jersey, New York market to seeing somebody for me, it was like I was a buyer from Jeff for so long. And then, our friendship kind of blossomed, seeing each other at shows and, then just, chatting it up. And then we've just had such a good relationship over the years. And I feel like that's what's awesome and always about this community is you never know where you're going to find your friends. Right. Yeah. So, again, that's it. Comic Dunes, make sure you follow my buddy Jeff on all those major podcast all the social media platforms. I'm sorry. And you know where you can find us. We're also looking to be adding some other platforms for ourselves for the Comic-Con podcast this year. So that's it. Well, we'll catch you next week. Enjoy your time and peace out, everybody.